This review is brought to you by the word of the day, Chronicle, a historical account of events arranged in order of time, usually without analysis or interpretation. Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're talking about Chronicle. Man, you know what? I saw this in theater a long time ago, and I've seen it several times since. I own the Blu-ray, and when I first saw it, it blew my mind. But this is the first time that I'm going to review a movie without typing out the review first. Normally I write it out, I throw it into a teleprompter app so I can read it out. Because normally I kind of go on long tangents and I could be recording for a half hour because I don't know what to say next. When I type it out, I can type as fast as my mind allows me to think. Not this time, guys. I'm going to free speech it all. Hope it goes okay. But like I said, this movie blew my mind when I first saw it because I've always been a fan of superhero films. I've always been a fan of found footage films as long as it's done right. And because they approached both angles in this film, it kind of was original. It was an original take on the superhero subgenre because of the way that it was filmed, with the style of found footage. It was an original take on found footage because of the premise of superheroes. So in a big way, this movie is original, and that's one main reason to watch it. It stands out, regardless on if you like the movie or not. It's different. It's different enough to warrant a watch. Basically, it's about a group of 3 friends who, throughout the course of events in the film, find themselves underground where there's this giant glowing crystal. And I don't know if it's supposed to be alien in nature, if it's supposed to be put there by government force. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever the case is, they touch it, and then they gain extraordinary abilities, specifically speaking, telekinesis. And telekinesis can actually do a ton of different stuff. It can make them fly, it can create a force field around them to protect them from harm, and it kind of works like a muscle, so the more they work it out, the stronger they become. One of these kids is played by Dane DeHaan, who has a troubled childhood. His father beats him. He gets bullied in school, so technically speaking, he's probably going to be the villain of the film. So there's so many reasons to like this movie. There's amazing performances by Dane DeHaan, Michael B. Jordan, and I'm not entirely sure who the third guy is, but I think it's the first time I saw any of them in a movie. And they all did a great job. They all have great chemistry, because if you think about it, this movie's not really about anything. It's really about these 3 friends who are just kind of experiencing everything together, kind of just testing out their abilities, and that's what really works for the found footage part, because it's really just 3 guys goofing off, and it's hilarious half the time of what they're doing with their powers, and just kind of playing pranks on people, and just testing out the limits of what they can do. But at the same time, it is intrinsic for Dane DeHaan's character, who I think is supposed to be the main character, because you feel for him. You feel for him because he is getting abused by his father, he is bullied at school, people don't take him seriously, and this is something that really has bottled up inside him for several years, and you know it's not going to turn out well once he has the power to do something about it. So you basically know from the get-go that he's going to probably be the villain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hate him either or root for him to lose, because he had that horrific upbringing as a child. Because his father is abusive, because his mother is dying, because he is bullied at school, you care about him. And you don't really know how to feel when he starts going down to the path of the dark side, essentially. So I really liked the characters in this film. I thought they did an amazing job together. They had great performances. And I really liked how the film was shot. I think it was shot in a very effective manner. Found footage needs to feel amateurish, and the Chronicle feels amateur. It feels like there's just these 3 guys messing around with the camera, so the edits feel amateur, and that's great. However, I do have a problem with some of the found footage stuff. Whenever I look at found footage, I want it to have 2 things. First, I want it to make sense as to why they're filming in the first place, and 2, I want it to make sense as to why they keep filming after something happens. The first thing makes sense with this movie, 100%. First of all, Dane DeHaan's character is filming because he's trying to get evidence against his father who's abusive, maybe for an investigation later on, but he's just trying to prove to people that this is happening. This is what's going on in my life. That kind of transitions into the superhero bit, because once they get powers, they just kind of want to document what they can do. Let's face it, if you had powers, you'd want to document it all too. But there's a lot of stuff going on in between scenes that don't make a lot of sense. Like in the very beginning of the movie, he's trying to gather evidence that his father is abusive. That's fine. But then he takes the camera everywhere that he goes. He takes it to school and films himself eat at the bleachers. He takes it to a rave, a party later on, for no apparent reason. But they need the camera there because after the rave is when they find the thing underground. So they need to film that so the audience knows what's going on. If they didn't, then it would just cut to black, and the next thing you know, they'd have powers randomly. So no, they had to film that, but explaining how they got the camera there is a little bit wonky. Later on in the film, it gets more and more explosive, which is great, which is what you want out of a blockbuster. But the more explosive it gets, the more you need to see from a camera, and they only have one little camera. They don't have a ton of different angles to see absolutely everything that's going on. So one of the characters gets the brilliant idea to steal a bunch of people's phones and tablets and cameras to swirl around them so you can see a whole bunch of different angles of what's going on. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. Does it look cool? Yes, it does. It was filmed very, very well. However, it makes no logical sense as to why somebody would do that at all. It makes no sense why anybody in their right mind would do that unless they're trying to make a movie. Not only that, but it's towards the end of the film where there's a lot of hate and anger and just... I don't know if you've ever felt that much hate in your life, or if you've ever been passionate about something one way or another, but you don't have time to just sit there and film everything as if that's one of your priorities. And yet, that's what it feels like in this movie. It feels like filming is a priority, even when you're so focused on hating something. So I don't think it makes a ton of sense for the whole entire thing to be found footage. I think it should have been filmed like a normal movie, interwoven with found footage elements. That would have made the most sense, and they would have been able to avoid having those kind of plot holes where it's like, hey, there's a bunch of people filming me attack people, let me take all their cameras, swirl them around me so they can get a whole bunch of good angles of it. Nah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it is a good movie. I'm not going to take one plot hole and say the whole thing's garbage. It's not. It's definitely something that still stands out to this day. It might not be as mind-blowing as I once thought it was, but it's still a great film. Let's take a look at my final score for a second. From an unbiased technical vantage point, like I said, there's a lot of great stuff going on here. The way that it is filmed in general from a found footage standpoint is fantastic. There's only a handful of found footage films that I think are filmed right and edited right. This is one. The concept behind the found footage thing itself and why they keep filming in certain areas, it's not the best, but the way it's actually filmed from a technical vantage point is very well done. All the performances are great. The casting is perfect. The chemistry is 82% for the unbiased score. And because this is still a movie that I really have a lot of fun with every time that I watch it, regardless of what plot holes it may or may not have, I still really like it at 84% for the biased score. Averaging out the two scores, we obviously come down to the final score of 83%, 83 out of 100 possible stars, granting this movie with a letter grade of B. I think I originally scored it a lot higher, maybe 10% higher, because the first time that I saw it, it blew my mind, obviously. The more that I watch it, the more I realize it's not a perfect film, but it is still a very well-made film, regardless. Guys, tell me your thoughts on Chronicle in the comments down below if you've seen it. Also, tell me what kind of found footage films you prefer. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.